14 days straight.
Yep.
You've been fishing.
Yep. 14 days. I went, so I did all the practice days of the Open. Every day I practiced, including the Wednesday, which I didn't really want to practice that day. And then I did Thursday was the tournament. And even on the day off, we had this huge pond in the backyard. So I fished that day out in that pond. Now, granted, it's not out in the boat. And then every single day I shot a TV show leading up to the tournament this past weekend that you were in. And I fished Friday, Saturday, or a few hours Friday, half a day Saturday, and then fished the tournament on Sunday. So, yeah. And today's the first day I haven't fished in 2 weeks. I'm dying. So my body is just shot right now.
I was pretty tight. Like, my wife was like, "Hey, you slept in at 6:30 today," and I was like, "Well, sort of. It's kind of like 5:30, from whenever, but it feels. I think I fished more in the past 3 weeks than I fished in a long time. In the sense of like, I've just been fishing a lot. But we had like Ray Roberts. I don't even remember all of the events we've had.
Had a bunch.
TXCT, then Ray Roberts, and then we just randomly got in this one at Toledo. You know, that looking back, I don't know.
Did y'all even weigh in?
No. So in that event, well, I know. So in that event, did you read the rules on that?
Nuh-uh. I mean, I did, but I mean, it was. What about it?
You had to be in line, or you had to be up there, checked in by like 3:30.
Yeah, if you were past 100. Yeah.
Yeah, and so me and Russell, so Hackney texted me like on Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
and called me, and we were just talking, and then he was like, "Hey, I heard there's fish are all over the beds. Like, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing." He's like, "Man, I figured you'd be over there in Toledo." And I'm like, "No. Why? What's going on over there?" He's like, "Oh, they got 2 big tournaments." So I had to go figure out what the tournaments were. And then he goes, "Yeah, I heard they're all over beds, you know?" And I'm like, "I guess, I don't know." So anyways, we ended up, I wasn't going to fish the V&N tournament because that was like a Thursday night. Anyways, yeah, we woke up or Friday. So we were just like, "Hey, let's go fish the Randy Despino one. Let's go sight fish." So we drove to Kelly's like that night. And I guess I was talking out loud. Our kids are on spring break and they were like, "Oh, we want to go." So we ended up going or taking the family, which they never go.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I was highly disappointed in the sight fishing. Well, so me and you didn't even talk. Like that all happened in a matter of like a couple of hours. We drive down there. Russell was going to meet me there in the morning. Yeah. Russell was going to meet me there in the morning. And then the next thing you know, I'm out there sight fishing the next day and I'm trying to figure out where to go. And I ended up running into you on the water.
Yeah. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I was like, "What? He's just not out here." Because the lake was ridiculous.
Oh,
the amount of people.
Yeah.
They were everywhere. And I hadn't seen anyone look since I'd been there. And I see one boat and it's you looking.
Yeah.
Like that is a giant lake. And for me and you were in it like within like talking. I rounded the corner and me and you were like staring at each other. So
yeah, that was pretty crazy. My dad's like, "Did you know Todd was fishing?" I'm like, "I had no idea. I didn't know he was fishing." And I said, "But it is funny that we roll into the same pocket at the same time."
Like
on such a huge lake too. I mean,
and then I run into you in another pocket, and then you run into Russell.
Yep.
20 miles away.
Yeah, 20 miles away, 2 different times. Two different creeks. So
and then I got in the big water because so I was hoping not to go do that. And I was hoping not I hit everywhere where it was so bad everywhere that we just kept going down, not down the lake, but spots. And he was like, "Man, There was one other place, and I was like, man, I don't want to get out there in the big water and go look. And I did. And like the whole time I was driving, and it was blowing.
Oh yeah.
I passed no one. Like there was I never even saw anyone on the lake when I was driving. And I was going, what am I doing? And I went there and did horrible for about an hour and a half. And like I see this little fish, like it's the weirdest thing. So I see these like fish like this big, like 8 inches, like kind of like busting. I don't know why I threw over there on them. Like I just stopped and I threw on them and I catch an 8-incher. And then my next fish was like a 2.5 pounder. I'm like, that's weird. And so then I like cast a couple more times from nothing. And then I just I moved like maybe 30 yards and I hook one and I'm on the phone with Russell. I was like, man, this thing's crazy. Like I got something on there and it ran at the boat and then took off. And I'm like, I ain't got a bass. I don't know what this is. Yeah. It ended up being that 1041. Because I had taken Michael out the day before, the family out in spring break, and Michael caught one like over 8. And Brittany's like, you don't have a scale? Because that was going to be his biggest one. I'm like, no, I mean, I know how big, an 8-pounder is. I was like, it's an 8 or 9. And shit, I've already caught 2 10s this year and a 9. So when I caught, like, I was like, man, I better find me a scale because I was getting in my new boat. So I found me a scale and put it in there. And it goes 10 pounds, 6 ounces. And I was like, oh, I better go turn this thing in. No, and then I passed you on the gas station.
I know, yeah. Like I roll it. I was like, "Hey Val, let's pull over there and get gas real quick." So I had to do it in the morning. And then Todd just rolls in literally at the exact same time, and I'm like, "That's when I got the picture of his 10." It ended up being what 1041.
1041.
Yeah, this is it. In case people were wondering,
I was at the gas station.
I was at the gas. I was like, "Hey."
When does this happen? I hope that I don't know if I froze up or Andrew froze up. Anyways, that's good. At least it's a picture of me and I'm still there. I don't know what he's doing. He did freeze. Hey, is it just me or is it just Andrew? Because it looks like I'm good to go. But yeah, that's it. That's the 1041. Oh, he froze? Yeah. He'll get back on. He'll figure it out. So yeah, that was a 1041. So I don't know if any of y'all know, on Toledo Bend, they have oh, there he goes. He's gone. I don't know where he went. He'll get back on. At Toledo, they have, so in Texas, we have this deal that's like a share lunker, where anytime you catch one over 13 and you turn it in, they'll give you a free replica. All that stuff, and then it goes to, they have what's called the share lunker program, and then they put they'll try to get them before they spawn. Oh, he's back.
Sorry,
that's all right.
Yeah, when you're dealing with East Texas internet, that's sometimes how.
I know. So they ended up they'll do all that. Well, Toledo started this like different program where anything over a 10-pounder, they're doing that. So it's not the same thing. They don't keep them and they don't try to get them spawned out. But what they're promoting is catch and release. Now, why is that important on Toledo Bend? I didn't think we were going to get into this, but you never know what we're going to get into. Anything over a 10-pounder, what you do is you take it into a couple different places, and if it's over 10, they'll tag it, and then they'll give you a free replica at the end of the year. I've caught a couple of these, and it's cool, right? I haven't fished Toledo. This was my first time to fish Toledo in like 2 years, so it's pretty cool that I caught a 10-pounder, and I hadn't fished Toledo in like 2 years or whatever. But what's crazy is that and I got another story about when I caught that one, but they do that because I don't know if they did this because of this, but Andrew will tell you, we live down here, and people from Texas, I'm not dogging on a lot of people from Louisiana, but it's true. They it's just different. Not everyone from Louisiana, and a lot of my buddies are from Louisiana. Like most of my best friends are from Louisiana, which is weird. My buddy Kelly's from Louisiana, but they all tell you he's freaking. They keep everything, and so it was a way to promote something, of catch and release. Because the deal is if when you catch it, and they usually keep it overnight, and they don't release it till the next day. And if it stays alive, then you'll get your replica. If it doesn't, you don't get it. And the reason is they don't want you, like taking 45 pictures and lugging it around all day long. They want you to like bring it in, and it's helped promoting that. Now, it does not obviously. It's great that guys aren't keeping those big ones and letting them go. Now, every single person I saw keep a fish, and they were not in tournaments on Saturday. You could tell they weren't wearing life jackets or anything like that. Every single fish I saw that got caught was kept. I don't care. It's just a weird mentality. And the reason is because I've got there's some Facebook photos out there of like these guys with like 45, 50, 60 bass that they caught over the weekend. And I'm just like, what are you going to do with 50 or 60 bass anyways? Yeah. And they're not big, like they're small ones. I don't know, man. It's just a weird mentality that they just keep, how it is.
Yeah, I mean that we've dealt with it for years over here on Toledo, and that's why I think you see Toledo go through these real highs and lows, the real exaggerated highs and lows, because there for a while, there for a while people won't fish. Like nobody will come out here and fish. I mean, boat ramps will be empty for months, and the deal is but once they figure out that Toledo Bend's firing, then the boat ramps are full and everybody's catching them and keeping them and eating them, and then it just goes back down to that valley again. And
I've always said keeping fish isn't a big deal. Like that's not a big deal. The problem is that Toledo's good right now, so it can handle people out there keeping fish. Right? That's not the big deal. The problem is these guys keeping, like Vernon says, them folks hungry. If it was just a hungry deal, I get it. But it's the amount of pictures on Facebook, like showing a whole bunch of dead ones all laid out in coolers. And like, it's this weird, like guys in tournament fishing love to show their pictures of fish they catch in tournaments, right? But they're all letting them go. Like this is their way of showing everyone that they can fish. Is look how many dead ones are up on a table or in a cooler, and it doesn't. And they don't do that with crappie or anything else. Like they go catch all those, but they do it for bass, and it's just this weird mentality. And most of them, nothing ever happens to them because there is some laws out there that you're like not allowed to have more than 2 limits on your person. I know it's a really, really kind of BS law. It's like saying you can't have like a bunch of fillets in your house. Like you really aren't allowed to have.
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen it locally here quite a few times where guys will have a basket and they'll bring them in and they'll drop their limit in the basket and
go back out.
They'll go back out. And then the next day they'll come drop their limit in the basket.
And that's
before long, there's 50. Before long, there's 50 bass in this basket, and you're like,
that's what the law is intended for you to not to do. It's not to punish the guy who goes out and catches 25 crappie, puts him fillets them, puts them in his freezer for somewhere down the line. Yeah. Does that every day for a week. And then the game warden comes up and says, "Hey, you got too many in your freezer." That's not for that guy. It's for the other. But I will say, every single person that I saw keep fish, every one of them had a Louisiana tags.
Every time.
And I'm like, why do they come to the Texas side? You can see them drive across from the Louisiana side to the Texas side.
So I launched at 9:44 that day when you and I were down there, and I'm telling you, almost every single boat in the ramp was from Louisiana. And it's crazy because you're having to go all the way around the lake.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't either. I've never understood what it is. But
hey, I didn't want to get on the whole like Toledo Bend deal. But anyways, that's what the program was for, I think, was to keep these guys from catching 10-pounders and putting a fillet knife to them and just like, hey, turn them in. We'll get you a replica, right? You'll get it. It's a pretty cool deal, and then they'll release it. So
Yeah.
I think I think it was a smart program. It's not. I think I was the 41st person. I was a 40.
Marshall Hughes weighed one the next day.
Yeah, Marshall. No, it was the same day.
Oh, was it the same day? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I talked to Marshall later.
Yeah.
And he said, so.
Yeah, I didn't catch any that big. I think I hooked one probably twice as big as that, around 20 pounds. But I don't think it was a bass though.
Everyone kept on asking me, man, did I catch it off a bed? And I'm like, I had a tournament the next day. I'm not going to go catch one off a bed. Like,
that's exactly what you should do, is go hook one off a bed that's a 10-pounder.
Yeah. I was like, man, you know how many freaking big ones I've shaken off in tournaments? Like Russell caught one. Russell has a 10-3 from Toledo Bend from a tournament. It was me and him fishing it. And I was like, I mean, I knew, like, I shook that fish off like 10 times in practice.
Yeah.
I shook it off so many times. It was a weird story. There was like I swear there was like a 13, 14 pounder up there, and I was trying to get it to bite. And there was just like, I was throwing to it. And then if you like hopped it a couple times, it would fall off. And there was this deep bed. Like you could make the same cast to that one. And I'm looking down there, it got calm. I'm like, dang, there's a fish down there underneath the boat. And I kept flipping on it. And I'd work it down there every once in a while. I didn't think it was that big, and it bit. And it like, but I fished for this big one for like 2 hours in practice, trying to see if I could get it to bite. And it never did bite. And it never really would get on the bed. There was a little one on the bed, and I was trying to figure it all out and trying not to get seen either. I didn't want anyone to see me. And so I kept, like, every once in a while I'd get bored, just flip on the other one and it would bite. And we went there in the tournament, and it was like white capping on it. The wind shifted. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to throw up there where that 15 was. I'm like, just throw right there. And his first cast he throws there, hooks it. I didn't think much about it. Like, I was calling it like an 8-pounder in my head. Yeah. So we caught it, we netted it, put it in the boat, and just kept fishing for the rest of the day. I didn't think much, well, we didn't do very good in I think we came in third in the event. We didn't do like what we thought we were going to do. And we were debating on whether even weighing them in, because I think we only had like 3 or 4 fish that day. Yeah. And so we broke that one out, and he was like, what about big bass? I'm like, we're not going to win big bass. And then I weighed it, because I just, like, anyone that's ever sight fished, you kind of get it in your head what you think one's going to be. And so you just like, I told him it was an 8-pounder. So we looked at it and weighed it, and it went like 10 something on our scale. I'm like, oh, I guess we got to go weigh these in. And it went 10-3, and he got a replica for it.
So that's how I got my one replica, was the one right at 12 at I caught it at 7 a.m. On a spot there around Patroon, and it was in February. I caught it on football jig, and it weighed 1196, so it was 0.04 off. And I mean, I caught it at 7 a.m. dude. I promise you that thing was over 12 whenever I caught it. But I weighed in the Bass Champs and got a free replica, or Bass and Bucks. It was a Bass and Bucks. I got a free replica for that one, but I've never turned in another one ever.
See, my first one was at 1260. It was before that Toyota event, and I put it in the live well, and I didn't even know if it was a 10-pounder. And I saw James Strickland on the water, and I caught it, put it in the live well, didn't think much about it. But I was really far away from, like, I was practicing and I was really far away. And I said, man, I ran into James Strickland. I'm like, hey, you got a scale? And he said, no. He said, you got a big one? I'm like, yeah, I think I'm just going to let it go. And I pulled it out. Did Andrew freeze? Okay. I pulled it out, and he goes, oh, you got to go weigh that thing in. I'm like, you think? He's like, that's way over 10. I was like, oh, okay. And so I freaking just packed it up and went to the is he freezing up again? Oh, I packed it up and went and weighed one in. And I'm pretty good at fish care, in the sense of like I'm out there by myself. I just put it in the live well instantly. I never looked at it again. So as I'm driving to, I go load up, cut my day short. And as I'm driving up there and I look in the live well one more time before I drive anywhere, I want to make sure like my live wells are closed or like my, so water can't leak out, stuff like that. And I looked at it and I was like, hey man, there's this like tag on there. I couldn't figure out like what this tag is on there for. And so I called up the Texas Parks and Wildlife wondering what this tag is. When I get up there, I realized that I had caught a fish that had been tagged. And so they looked at the tag, and the tag, so that was a fish that had been caught before and was turned into this program, which is like a perfect story for like why this program's good. So I found out it was caught by Steven Johnson, who's like a buddy of mine. So I called Steven up instantly because he was fishing the tournament too. And I was like, Steven, dude, I caught your fish. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I caught your fish. So he caught it a year earlier, almost to the day in February. And it was a 10.6. And then when I caught it, it was a 12.6. So it grew 2 pounds in a year. It was way far away from where he caught it because we talked about where we both caught it. But I mean, that is an example of why that program works is, tagged, let go, and a year later, someone else catches it and it's 2 pounds heavier. I mean, if that doesn't, tell y'all why at least releasing big ones, oh.
That was weird. Dude, yeah, I can't even go there. Like my freaking internet's been so bad lately. Yeah.
I tried to do one with Lee Livesey about the Brandon Belt deal, and we never could get it going.
Yeah. I mean, it's just every once in a while I gotta switch. I've got two internet services, actually 3 at my house that I use for different things. And I keep having to switch it around for whatever reason. It's just lagging out. But
if they would leave, why do you think that is?
Probably because the water will be in the bushes, and 12-15 will play a lot more, and a lot of the Louisiana side stuff will be a lot better. I mean, you put way more cover in the water for sure.
Like I don't go over there that much.
Well, it's just a cover aspect. I mean, the big problem is right now is there's not enough cover in the water as it is. I mean, even with the lake being down or up, I went to some of my best places that I hadn't been to in years on Sunday when we were fishing that tournament, and I hadn't seen it in a long time, and it was decimated. Like there was no reason to even go over there. Some of that stuff. So there's no grass on it. There's just a lot of it isn't right. But that's my opinion.
Do you remember this?
Yes, I do remember that. And no, I would never, ever do that. That's horrible.
If anyone doesn't know, Dudley. So I guess this was a while back, and I guess they messaged you your boat number, right? While you could still practice.
Yep.
And it was a bedding tournament, and he realized he was going to be a late number, so he went and stuck all the fish.
And supposedly, I don't know this for fact because obviously I wasn't there, but supposedly like cut the hook off in some of them. Like didn't only just catch them, but like left a hook stuck in their mouth. What I was told that is not rumor, but you know what I'm saying. Like I remember some old timers telling me about that deal and what the big hang up was, and they said that's what they told me. I don't know if it's true or not though, truly, but. The fact of just catching them beforehand, I mean, it wasn't against the rules or anything, but it did change. I think there's a couple of David Dudley rules actually, but yeah, it's
Oh, we never even so I didn't even so why didn't we weigh in? I didn't even get to the point of why I didn't even weigh in. I don't even know how we got sidetracked. But anyways, you had to weigh in by 3:30, and so we knew that we were about 35 minutes away drive time, and we weren't going to run in that. We didn't know how bad the weather was going to be. Golly, it was freaking giant waves out there, like monster waves.
Yes.
And so we didn't. Oh God, you froze with your eyes wide open like that. Yeah. So we knew we were like on the verge of a check, but we didn't really know. And then we were like, hey, let's go to this one more spot. We caught our biggest one. And we were like, man, we're probably going to get a check, but man, we're going to have to it's going to have to be perfect and we might not make it. And we decided, and we were pretty frustrated with the day because it's the longest story in the world. But I mean, we caught like 50 and we just never caught any big ones. And doing what we were doing, anyways, next thing you know, yeah, I looked and realized we would have got a check fairly easy.
Yeah.
But it was a $250 check. It wouldn't have been.
I mean, it wouldn't have been worth driving across that lake the way it was.
No, we weren't going to drive. Yeah, I don't. And I think we might have been late. Like we would have been like within a minute or two. And when we got to the boat ramp, we had to wait on freaking an old we were like, hey, if someone's at that boat ramp when we get there, we're screwed for like another 5 minutes. And sure enough, two people had to load before us, and it took like 5. I don't think we would have made it.
So we were, it was Valerie and I, because we try to fish one tournament a year together. And about 1 o'clock, we ran up the lake. We were running up to the bridge, and all of a sudden that wind just started hitting. It was dead calm. It's probably when it was about 10 or 11 o'clock. That wind started hitting, and I told her, I said, we got to get back down by the house, like right now. Because if we don't, we're going to get trapped up here, and it's going to be real big. And sure enough, it got real big. And it was blowing all night. It blew trash cans over. I mean, it was bad. Now,
I've seen it
worse.
I'm using this from now on. I'm using that from now on. That's such a good. I'm stealing that saying.
No, that is pretty good, actually.
I never thought about this, but I
bet it happens. I say that? Probably not. Somebody's probably done it. Somebody's probably caught one.
I usually think about some weird things like this, but I never thought about that. But there's not really another lake. I mean, that's a long drive for a free replica.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, because there's not the closest lake that's truly here. Rayburn. Yeah. It's like 35, 40 minutes.
How far is that Caney Lake in Louisiana?
Oh, it's quite a ways from here.
I don't know. I've never been.
An hour and 40 minutes or so from Toledo.
It's not that far though.
But I mean, if you think about it, you're almost better off going to a Nacogdoches or somewhere like that.
I almost wish I didn't even put that on there. I've never even thought about that.
It's pretty funny.
Hopefully no one else does either.
I mean, that's just dirty.
I can't answer this. Can you?
Yeah, I use the C-Map and I use some Navionics stuff. I just kind of run both. I run a bunch of different mapping cards and things like that. So I keep an open mind with that stuff. You have to on Toledo because Toledo's got so many stumps and stuff.
So you did answer it? I was reading.
Map chip for Southeast. What should I get? I mean, like I said, I've used it's a Lowrance C map and I use the Navionics Platinum. The two maps I use on Lowrance. But Bill Willis lives 5 minutes from Caney. Dude, you'd like that place. Probably would like it too much.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
It's pretty good. It's really good.
See, I don't know what that the annual Fort Tag tournament is, but we had that Bass Cash Blast or whatever on Rayburn, and I've never gotten in it. And my reasoning is if I don't catch it in a tournament, I'm probably not going to catch. Well, this year would be different, but normally all I ever do is shake fish off on Rayburn. And I'm like, I'm going to be out there buying a tag and shaking more fish off than I actually catch. Well, so it made me mad not to. So I was like, I'm not ever going to get in that thing because I'm probably shaking off a money fish.
So somebody, Casey Lynch, said that you use a 7.6 medium heavy loose Super Duty rod on your your Hybrid Hunter.
Yeah. So, I hadn't got that.
Have you tried the?
So someone asked about the Kara. So I only fish loose now.
Yeah.
because someone else asked about like, you know, I don't know where it was. I just saw it about like when I switched to Lose. I switched from Lose like 2 years ago. I always threw this old Castaway rod, the 7.6 Castaway. Falcon never made one that I liked, that I thought was right. And then I was going to get Lose to make me one. But before I did, I messed around with a whole bunch of their rods, and I found this. Yeah, it's the Super Duty Series 7.6 medium heavy, and it is.
Have you tried the? I know you have the rod. Have you tried that swim bait rod? The actual swim bait rod,
The 7.6.
Yeah,
yeah, it's close.
That's the one I use. I love that rod. I don't know
close.
why. Yeah.
It's not as good.
Well, but you like yours a little bit stiffer than mine. I like mine have a little bit more.
I think the swim bait's stiffer than that rod.
Do you? I've got both. I use both of them.
It loads different. I'll put it this way. That's what I gave those rods to Hallman. I gave 2 of them to Hallman in the Open on Rayburn.
Which one?
When he went through that Hybrid Hunter all day long, that's what he went. I gave him those 2 rods. I set him, and I'm like, this is what? And he was like, dude, never lost a fish, never missed one. Yeah. Like,
see, I'm not going to say the swim bait signature rod is different than the swim bait ledge rod. What I've noticed, the swim bait ledge rod that I had,
that's a 7.4.
No, it's a 7.6. The swim bait, the original ledge rod was a 7.6, and it loaded better. It wasn't as stiff as the signature rod, but I mean it gets the job done. But I have the 7.6 Super Duty rod too, just because of that. But I will say this: I screwed up when I ordered my rods. I ordered 2 of the 7.6 medium heavy Super Duties, and I ordered I think we have like a walleye version or something. We have one that has a handle like this long on it. And the rod, it's way too jacked up. I can't use them. So they're good A-rig rods though.
What is I think that's the one. I think that's the band video.
Yeah, it is the band video.
It's the band video that's like still my #1 all-time viewed video, but not because of the fish catching, which was still like that was it. This is funny.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, I don't know if I want to talk about the hybrid. Okay, so I'll put it to you this way: I've caught 3 10s this year, and 2 of them came on the Hybrid Hunter.
Yep.
And 2 of them in the last 2 weeks. I'm going to do a video.
Where was your other 10 at? I know where this one was, but where was your other one at?
Rayburn and then Ray Roberts.
Oh, Rayburn. I didn't know you caught. Oh, yeah, I remember you saying you caught one at Rayburn.
Yeah,
you caught a couple big ones that day.
I caught a 10 and a 9 that day on back-to-back cast, but not in the same. Like I caught a 10 and left. I never made another cast. I went to another spot that I've never fished for, and like my first cast was a 9.
Yeah.
But the 10, the 10 at Ray Roberts, yeah, both 10s are on the same exact bait. Like I never I just kept the same bait on there. I'm gonna do the Ray Roberts one. I'm gonna wait. Both videos. So we got a Ray Roberts Texas Team Trail event that I'm gonna wait on.
Yeah, I'll wait on that one.
And then I'll after the Open, I'll release this other 10-pound video. I mean, I don't know if I have to. Well, the Toledo Bend one's probably more important. I want to kind of.
Yeah, I wouldn't release that one yet.
Yeah, I just want to wait.
I mean, because you never know. That might play.
It's going to play.
Maybe not. Yeah, it just might not be as. You just never know.
Yeah.
Just never know.
But it's going to be a cool. It's going to be a cool video because we videoed.
I will ask you this because did you catch it on the old school color or the new school color? You'll know what I mean because you had both of them on your deck.
I caught it on my color, the one I designed for Strike Pro.
Yeah, a long time ago. Okay, that's what I thought. I figured that's what you caught it on.
Yeah,
I like the new one. I like the new one too. That new color is awesome. is I don't. It just has that blue back to it. I just really like that blue back. It's not. Well, I say new color. It's not new. It's in the Strike King lineup of colors, but I know it's not the one that you designed before.
Yeah, it is.
You didn't design. I know the one you designed for Strike Pro years ago. I know that one. The other one that you had on your deck, because I looked at your deck.
That's the same one.
No, it isn't. You had a different one. You had the what is that name of that color
Oyster?
called? Yeah, oyster.
I had the other one on too.
Yeah. Oh, I know you did. I saw you had both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was that's why I was asking if you caught them on the old one or the new one.
No, yeah.
So, well, yeah. I mean, that's the. Did you ever get me any of the shallow hybrid hunters in that color yet?
Whatever I have from prototyping.
My dog's doing crazy.
I never got any like regular ones. Like I haven't got any from Strike King. They were all prototype stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I get you one.
They did send me some of my shallow ones. I just hadn't even put them in the box yet.
Well, there you go.
I know, but they didn't. I don't have that color in it.
I don't know if I have that color either.
Yeah, I know I've got the Clearwater minnow, and maybe a gold, and maybe oyster is the 3 I got in it.
We hooked. So here's a crazy part. Because someone, and I'll get to it. I think when I was reading, I think Ben asked, did we ever hook one in the Brandon Belt tournament that would have won it? I didn't. Russell hooked. There was one on this point that he hooked for like a split second, but he swears it wasn't a bass because it didn't fit any of how we were catching. We were just like moving to the next spot. And then he hooked 2 more. One of them was a good one. But the problem was we would have had to have caught a 7-pounder that day to cull. We had almost nothing but 5-pounders. So I don't know if any of them were 7-pounders. The day before, if we had just gone and done anything like what we caught our big one the day before doing it. We just didn't understand it all. If we had just been smart and just done it a little bit more, all we had to do was catch a 4-pounder, which would, in all honesty, from what we did on Sunday, was probably going to be really easy. That's the only thing that sucks. And we'll get it, that Brandon Belt tournament. You know, I made some videos about that, and a lot of people were. I'm gonna get into this because I want to get into something else too.
Oh God, what are we getting into? Before you get into all that, you can get into it. I know what you're getting into. I have a feeling at least.
Yeah.
Steve Keen said, my dad paints baits and I recently had him paint a hybrid hunter in a bluegill pattern that's not factory in a hybrid hunter. It really catches fish.
Well,
Todd, where's my bluegill color, man?
Yeah, why is he sending that to me and let me look at it, man?
I mean, for real.
I might send him, like you send me one, I might send you a couple back that you don't have.
Exactly. Like I need the bluegill one. Like,
yeah. I mean, you got to break it off and so
funny side story to that. I was out with Todd one day and I had this very custom, one of a kind hybrid hunter before they even released the hybrid hunter that Todd had given me. I had one of them and
I gave it to you.
I know, but it was really good. And then you break it off intentionally.
Well, no, man, tell the story. So like he had it and it was like hung up.
I was hung on a stump.
No, on a stick.
Limb. A stick.
On a limb. And he brought it up. And it wasn't a very big limb. Like it was a little bitty old limb.
Yeah.
Like a little twig. And I was like, here, we were talking and like, here, I'll get it for you. And I reached down there and I was just joking around because the thing floats and I cut it. And that limb, I guess, was heavy enough that it made it sink. And man, I laughed so hard because I was like, I'll get you another one. But yeah, it did. I just assumed it was going to float, like big deal. And when the limb was like skinnier
was a
than my
tiny, but it
finger.
was like one of those super heavy, like it sank like
Yeah,
a
it
rock.
just made it sink. And I was like, it sunk quick too. And I was like,
Yeah.
that thing, if you'd have picked it up, wouldn't even have bowed your rod up.
Nuh-uh.
No,
That was awesome.
that Brandon Belt. So like I went off in the freaking comments about all that or I went off and made 2 videos because so many people missed the point of the video. Not so many people. I always say that 99% of the people understood the video, but you got these guys that are like, oh, you're dogging our club events. You want us to go. And I'm like, no, man, I'm not saying that there should be 5,000 people going and fishing this event. It's not made for everyone. There's a group of fishermen out there. Okay, I can say it. I'm going to say it here. Andrew will know what I'm saying. There's a group of fishermen that fish tournaments. Okay. And the way their jerseys are freaking just, you can't fit anything on their jerseys, right?
Yeah.
They got $100,000 boat. They got $100,000 vehicle. They're on social media. They I'm not saying they claim to be all this stuff, but they are like over the top tournament guys, all this stuff. We know them. They will hound you for freaking Strike King and lose, and Luke Duncan gets the same thing from TH Marine. It's all these guys wanting all these things, and then all of a sudden, it's hey, you going to show up for this event, and they won't show up for that event, and there's so many fishermen that like want all this, but then won't go show up at an event because, well, I mean, they'd rather be called a professional fit. It's not professional, but they'd rather look like one than fish like one. And that's kind of where it was at, is like, there's these guys that fish these, I'll say it, like not bass champs, but all these trails, and that's all they care about is this tournament fishing, just like us. And I'm like, well, if you care about it so much, why wouldn't you do it to like something that pays a lot? Now, I'm not telling some guy from Arkansas or like North Carolina to drive down to Texas and fish a Ray Roberts event. No, but there are tons of guys that in Dallas, Texas, and they fish Ray Roberts all the time. And they finally had a chance to go fish for $50,000. And there's some guys on there saying, look, well, you pros this and pros that. And I'm like, look, if you had gone and if you watched the footage of that event, I guarantee you when you watch the footage of that event, everyone's going to be like, oh, I could have done that. You mean like go throw a bait against the bank? It's going to be like it's what we practiced for that event was like, in my opinion, like next level looking for stuff. But the guy, like all the guys who caught him, we basically were all doing the same thing, just going down the bank.
Yeah.
Like your first year fishing, you could have done that and done the same thing. It wasn't rocket science by any means. Ben Matsubu, when we saw him, like when we talked to him after, like they were leading day one, and I was like, that's where y'all caught him doing that? And we just was like, we had talked about doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in there with a bunch of other people. He was the only one doing that though. Everyone else was live scoping and doing all this stupid stuff. Not Ben. He's just going down the bank catching them, freaking 27 pounds worth.
No, and the thing that aggravates me about, I didn't fish it, but I was at the Open. I mean, I couldn't fish it. The thing that aggravates me the most is you get a lot of guys out, and I hate to single out the guys from North Texas, but I'm going to, that are from North Texas, and they complain about not having big tournaments up there. And I mean, they do. They get on the message boards, they get on social media, they're complaining that they can't get any big tournaments. When you finally have one there and you don't show up, I mean, it just makes you wonder, like, why? Like, you just need to shut up or show up. I mean, it's basically where you're at. And I mean, but we ran into the same thing. We've done it for years. That's what's so funny is like we'd have a Texoma Open, a Costa, or whatever, and we'd get 125 boats in it, and there'd be 75 guys not show up that should be there.
And I'm not talking about the Opens, but at the time, like there'd be like 80 guys from Texas going and fishing the Opens back then.
Yeah,
they'd have a tournament an hour away from their house, and they were driving 9 hours to go fish and open for less money at the time, and that was my point is like all these tournaments, like they just, and everyone was like, oh, you wanted all these people at Ray Roberts. I'm like, no, I didn't. They were going to pay. It was a guaranteed payout.
Mm-hmm.
If 10 people showed up, 10 people would have split all that money.
Yep.
It wasn't that. I was just stating, why are all these people, like, I can't believe these people didn't show up. And half those people in the event weren't from Ray Roberts. Like,
yeah,
I hadn't fished Ray Roberts in 5 years. Lee Livesey.
It was probably more than that. It was probably 2/3 that were not from.
Yeah,
that
Lee
area.
Livesey. He called me up. He's like, "You fishing that thing?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like I got pictures of he freaking had a flat and all that. He practiced for like 3 hours for that event. He was doing horrible in the event on day one, and at the end of the day, caught all of his fish. And he was like, "Yeah, I think we figured it out. We just didn't figure it out till day 2." But it wasn't that hard. Like I said, everyone was trying to make it harder than it was. And it was pretty, even on day 2, all these people were out there. Like when I say all out there, they were like 2 deep, and we were watching them all, and they were like trying to be all specific and stuff. And we were just like passing them by, catching them.
Well, and that's, the reality is, and I've noticed it traveling around fishing and stuff, like the open at Eufaula, for instance. I just kept it insanely basic. I fished shallow, dirty water with, a vibrating jig. I drug a stick bait around. I did a lot of just different stuff. And then I went sight fishing. And that was just basically what I did. Like, could I have gone out there and actually I could not have gone out there and forward facing sonar, live scope, and active targeted fish because mine was messed up and I had some other issues. But I actually had my back transducer go out and I couldn't graph for brush piles. So I was really like, there was no like going out there offshore. It was literally, you're going to the bank and that's just what you're going to do. No matter if you knew it was going to be one out there or not. Like that's what I had to go do. But I've noticed just traveling everywhere beyond just Eufaula, we overcomplicate fishing immensely. I mean, at the end of the day, like I overcomplicated it in the tournament on Sunday, but I was trying to do too much. And I think as anglers, we try to do too much so many times. We read all this stuff, we watch all these videos, and we're like, man, I got to go do this and this and this. And if you just have a pretty simple game plan and you just go out there and stick to it, you're probably going to end up catching them.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I've always told people, if you really want to catch them on like a lake like Toledo, Rayburn, or literally anywhere, what you need to do is you need to find the biggest creek that you can find. Let's just say, for instance, on Rayburn, go to Veach, and you draw a line from the front part of Veach, and you say, I'm going to leave this for 2 days. You're going to catch a bunch of fish, and you're going to catch some big ones.
Like, I literally did that on like the places I don't know. So it's places I don't know real well and places that are hard to run. So when we went to Ross Barnett, right, I looked at Ross Barnett and I'm like, big creek, I'm going in there. And I spent all 3 days in there. And if I hadn't screwed up, I mean, I got a good check and everything. And it did really, like, I caught a big bag on day 2. If I just hadn't messed up day 1 and lost those fish, I'd have been in the top 5.
Oh, 100%.
And it's just, it was like, you just stay in the creek where they live, in a big creek.
And otherwise, we get in these big boats, these fast boats, we can cover all this water. And we're like, I'm going to go to this creek and that creek and this creek and that creek. And you're like, before the end of the day, you're like, dude, did I actually even fish, or was I just running around all day?
Around.
And that's what you do. I mean, Eufaula is a perfect example. The creek that you take out of, you literally could have drawn a line out in front of it. Now, granted, it probably didn't work as well this week or that week because so many guys did catch them offshore live scoping and stuff. But most of the time when Eufaula, especially during the spawn, and we were probably like a week or 2 early, but most of the time during the spawn, you could stay from that creek and just go back, and you're going to catch as many fish as you want. You don't have to go anywhere.
Did he freeze again? He froze again.
Sorry. But yeah.
No, you're back. You're back. Or you were back for a second.
So.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's fine. They had someone asked about my email. I don't know if I don't know how I feel about sharing my email.
I
Just go
wouldn't
to my
share it
like
on here.
Instagram or Facebook and go to like
Yeah,
direct message.
yeah, just direct message him about that.
This one. I'm not going to get into this because I'm still not happy about yesterday. But yes, it'll catch 50 of them.
And the other thing is, if you're in a spot or a place where you're catching a lot of smaller ones, you can go with the junior, and it's a really good option for catching just a bunch of fish. Period. But it catches giants too. I actually did a video not too long ago about it.
Yeah, there were.
Yes, there was.
This is what I've always said, that in the Toyotas in Texas or these big events and stuff, guys would rather I've made this whole thing. The guys would much rather zero and feel like they have, well, I fished an open and yeah, I didn't do good. And let me, I'm gonna get on Instagram or Facebook and go, man, the tournament didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but I was, and we're all like, who cares about any of that? Like, we want to go make some money. I'll go make some money in a freaking 50-man club event if it paid a whole bunch. Like, it's not about like what it is you're like. There's still guys that think like catching an open. So I know I'm going off on this. The Brandon Belt deal, and this is the crazy part too, is like the people that were fishing the event. One, they have Texas team trails there and Bass Champs events there. I fished both. Steven Johnston, who came in second, has fished both. Most of the guys fish all those same events. They'll still go fish one of those events with 250 people. And the same guys that were in that Brandon Belt tournament are in that event. But the funny thing is if you look at most of the Texas team trails and the Bass Champs events, it takes 20, I'd say 25 would be your lowest ever, up to like 33, 34 pounds to win one of those events.
Yeah.
It took 41 pounds in 2 days to win this thing.
Yeah.
It was actually easier to win because it was a 2-day event.
Well, the other thing is
Matsubu caught 27 pounds on day one and caught 10 the next day. Like, he would have blown it out on day one, but yet you didn't have to go catch one of those 10-pounders. Like, that's the funny thing, is like a 10-pounder, you get beat by guys that, I'm not saying got lucky, but David Curtis caught big bass. They only had 3 day one. Brian Clark caught biggest bass of the event. I don't even think they got a check when it was all. So like a lot of times, but Matsubu caught a 9-pounder. A big one had 27. Now he had some other fish to go with it. Don't get me wrong. But like, you're not going to get beat by a random guy catching a giant. It was like pretty much Livesey, Steven Johnston. Those guys were just the most consistent. Like, all you had to do was be a little bit more consistent. You didn't need some big bat, like big fish. It's just easier. It's easier to win.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, and I like what Brandon Belt's series is doing, and Brandon's putting a ton of his own personal money into this. Like, and he's guaranteeing some payouts with not as big a field. The only issue that I saw was the fact that they did schedule it on open. And beyond what some people may think, a lot of those open guys, I'm not saying a lot. I know I would have been at the Brandon Belt tournament had it not been literally right on top of it. I already had a partner for it, and I was going to fish all of them.
Will you go to other ones?
Man, I don't know. I might fish 1 or 2 of them.
Listen,
but I can't go to the Palestine one because it's right on top of the open.
Is it?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, the only 2 I can fish is Rayburn and Toledo, and I feel like a homer if I'm just fishing those 2. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, but, so I'm planning on fishing both of those if I can get into them. But, the Rayburn one will fill up 100%.
Yeah. What's fill up?
I mean, whatever they allow. I don't think they're letting more than like 100 or 125.
Oh, they'll let way more than that.
Will they? I didn't think they were going to let any more than that. I thought they were limited in the field.
No, I don't think there's a limit.
Oh.
I don't think.
Oh.
What?
No, there's some people talking about Eufaula.
Okay. So, okay. Can we talk about this?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have been. I mean, everything I've heard on is hearsay, so I don't.
I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know anything
I've watched
other
the
than
videos. I've had a ton of guys message me about like what the heck happened, and I mean, I've watched the videos from the angler on the water, and I've watched the video of the lawyer, and I just think it's a big circus
that's
as
the
it
only.
is.
I've only seen 2
Yeah,
videos.
I mean that
And
it's just a. I mean, golly, it's just different. I don't know. I have way more questions than answers at this point. I'll say
yeah,
that.
so if anyone doesn't know, this came across. Where was I? Russell sent it to me,
Yeah.
and the video popped up on my phone, and it was like real small. So I couldn't. I had to go back. I watched it somewhere else. So it popped up somewhere else, and even after that video, after I watched it, and if anyone watches the video, I was like, I don't even know I don't even know what I just watched. Like, this is the weirdest thing in the world. And then he was like, hey, that's not who he says he is. I'm like, what?
Oh,
And then I'm like,
yeah.
well, was he? I'm like, so did that guy get in trouble for fishing the event? Well, that guy didn't fish the event. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, and then it was like, and then there's this whole other hole sitting thing, which I don't even know anything about that. And I'm like, well, who's this Tucker Smith guy? Well, he's not even in the video. And I'm like, who's in the video? Like, no one in the video is anyone mentioned by name. No one is even. They're throwing out other names, and then they're like, hey, that's really this other guy. I don't know. And I was like lost at the whole thing. And I'm sure Bass is like,
Oh, I can't even imagine. I mean, dude, at the end of the day, like, it's, I don't know. It's just a weird, messed up thing. I don't know.
The lawyer video came across, and I watched it, and it was. If I hope people know what we're talking about. It was so lawyery. Can I say that? Is
Yeah.
that a word?
Yeah.
Lawyery?
I don't think it is, but I know what you're saying though.
It
Yeah,
was
it was full of the lingo and just it was very well not educated, very well
worded.
calculated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was 100%
Yeah.
calculated.
Yeah.
And it's like it wasn't as bad. Like, it's like all those apologies you see when when some guy goes out there on sports and freaking does something absolutely just horrible, and then gets up there and like, I really want to apologize for this, and this, and you're like,
But
you're
this
just
was the
upset
big thing.
you got caught. Yeah.
Well, it was
And
all
I'm like,
redirectionalized. Like you'd have, you know, I did this and I was wrong for this, but this is what the real problem is. It's like I don't know. The fact is should have just let the guy. You know, I'm going to redirect this just a little bit.
yeah.
And you and I talked about it the other day. The elite guys, and I'm going to call out the elite guys. I got buddies there.
Oh, I know where you're going. I agree with you 100% on this.
Hallman is a buddy of mine, and he's not like this. I know he's not. And
there's a lot of guys that aren't.
A lot of guys that aren't. But the elite guys, Bass Pro Tour guys,
David Mullins,
upper
David
level
Mullins
guys
is not.
Are setting a very bad example for the open, Costa, mid-level, and lower. I mean, high school, college, because we're all watching these same guys. And the fact that they pull into these like bed fishing areas, for instance, and this is just an example, and he pulls into a bed and a guy cuts him off by 10 yards and pulls up to another bed. I'm just like, what in the world? Like, I can't, I don't function like that. Like, I mean, the guy pulled up. What he did when he pulled in on the other angler, truly, I mean, I felt like was probably further than I've had guys pulling on me. And I'm like, I can't the examples that are being set right now, in consideration to others and like how people fish. Like if I pull up on somebody, you can ask literally every single angler I've ever pulled up to or pulled up on. I've asked them, hey, do you mind if I fish right here? And if you have a problem, I'll leave. Like, no big deal. Like, and most of them say, man, come on, like, no big deal. But every single time I ask if I can pull in. I had one angler ask, and I won't even say his name, but I pulled up on one angler and it was at Lake Travis, FLW Tour event. I pulled up and I said, hey, I said, do you mind if I fish here? And he said, no, I don't want you fishing this spot. I said, well, buddy, you beat me here today. I don't care what you catch. You could catch 30 pounds here. I will beat you here tomorrow, and you will not get to make a cast on it. Just know that up front. I will fish it at some point during this event.
And see, and I'm different. I can honestly say I've never in my entire life pulled up on someone and asked if I could fish here. Never done it.
See, I do it every time.
No, I've never had.
If I feel like it's an area, like an area thing.
That's what I'm saying. I've never came close enough to have to ask that. Like, and
like I feel uncomfortable if I pull like 200 yards ahead of somebody.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Well, seeing, like if you have to yell at me, like if you're yelling and we can't have a conversation, like I'm talking about yelling, like like you're screaming at the top of your lungs, I can barely hear you. But if I, like I'm not worried. It's all, everything to me is all, it's black and white, but it's gray. And what I mean by that is, if you look up in, like, so the other day at Toledo, I don't think anyone understands. It's insane. Like, you couldn't even like pick a spot on the bank, right? I mean, there's just people everywhere. Well, that's a little bit different, right? So like you kind of get in an area and you just kind of like find where the most open water is and you fish there, right? But if you're in a creek and there's no one else in that creek and you're the only one and the guy comes up like 50, 75 yards in front of you and you're looking around going, there's no one else in this creek and this guy pulled up in front of me. To me, that's what, like, even if you're like 100 yards in front, you're like, hey man, there's no one else in this creek. You could have gone anywhere else, but instead my boat's facing this direction and you pulled in front of me. It's a lot different when there's, if that creek had 10 people and you wanted to fish it, I'm really not too worried about where you, like, you're just trying to pick an area. We all know everyone in here is like playing by the same rules. No big deal, right?
Yeah.
If you're at Pickwick, I always cringed at this because I think I would have zeroed at these events. You used to tell me about Pickwick when it was a ledge deal, right? God, yeah, I know. And you're going, there's 7 spots on the lake and everyone's going to get on them. And I'm like, I would probably zero. Because my deal is on Rayburn and on all these lakes, I've never found this ridge that's 150 yards long with fish all on it. What I find is usually a cast or 2, but usually you can sit your boat down and fish around. So like even in this last Texas Team Trail, we're out there and we are 2 miles from the shoreline or a mile. There is not a boat in sight of us. I can see 10 miles in every direction. There is not a boat in sight. And a guy, and I know him, and I haven't put this video out yet, and I don't know if I am. He pulls up to where we're having a conversation like this. And I'm looking at him and he was like, well, you're live scoping. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm right here. He was like, well, you're in the back of the drain. And I'm like, I'm casting here and you pulled up where I'm casting. And he was like, oh, and he kept on going off. And I was like, hey, look, and I told him, I was like, hey, dude, you can do whatever you want to, but and we kept it cool. And I said, man, it's going to be on video. So it really doesn't matter. And he was like, he said more, he was mouthing off. And I was like, hey man, you're more, he goes, I guess you can edit anyway. I said, dude, all my videos I've ever done like this, I don't edit any of them. I put the whole interaction. So I can put, we've been fishing here and all of a sudden you see you make a big U-turn and freaking pull up right where we're casting. Yeah. And I was like, you're more than welcome to get a GoPro and go ask anybody around. Go find a video of me doing that to someone. I said, the fact that I put this stuff out on video, I do that because I have zero concerns about someone else doing that against me. because they won't look. Now, if he'd have said, "Hey, man, my bad," like a guy did it to me at the Toyota, and I know him, and he fished for about a minute, and he's like, "It's all yours." We talked it out, and I'm one of those guys that I don't really think pulling up on someone out in the middle of the lake, especially in team events, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially in something like, no, man, we got a better boat number. There is no day two. Like,
yeah,
if I'm driving down the lake and I got a spot that I think I'm going to win the tournament, some guy's on it, I'm not going to go pull up next to him because I hear those guys pull up and go, "I guess we're both fishing here," and I'm like, "No, I was fishing here. You just decided to pull up on me."
Yeah.
I don't know, man. And I don't know what happened at this Eufaula deal. Like, that Eufaula deal is kind of crazy because, even I'll tell you a crazy one. In that Toyota, that same Toyota I was talking about, I fished a spot. No one was on my second spot. No one fished there. There was a guy who was getting close to it, but never, like, there was a line he would turn back from. He did good in the event. And I eventually went over there and started fishing it. And that guy would come up. I think both of our casts, if we threw at each other, still couldn't hit each other. So, I mean, you know, we're talking 70 yards away. And he would get to there and turn back. He never wanted to fish where I was. I could have cared less where he was at. I ended up catching my biggest fish there on day one. And I never caught another fish. And so I eventually left, caught a limit, came back, and there was a guy sitting on it. And this stretch was a fairly big stretch. There was like kind of two drains next to each other, and I was able to fish both drains. Well, he was on one drain, so I kind of pulled up over here, fished around, and he ends up catching a big one. It's the only big, so he caught a big one. He was leading the event. It was the only big one he caught there, just one, just like, well, I caught a big one there. And so I'm like, man, I wonder what his boat number is tomorrow. I don't really care. He's leading I thought it was him who was leading the event, but I wasn't sure. And he only caught that one fish there. The next day, I went to it, and I was like waiting around. I went to the other spot first, and I'm like, man, if he shows up, even though I have every right, I was the first one to fish it on day one. I caught my big bass there. I was like, what do I do? And I fished for an hour, never had a bite. He pulled up, and he started fishing, and we talked for a while. I said, hey, man, I haven't caught anything. I said, I know you're leading it, dude. Go ahead. Go after it. I'm out of here. Yeah. And he stayed there all day long. I think he weighed in almost nothing, you know, and I actually caught a bigger bag just going around fishing. But my point is, there's always things like that. But what if he didn't know I had caught my big fish there that morning? And then it looks like, hey, you saw me catch a big one and I just showed up. You got to be careful when you accuse someone of, like, I know that might have been the case in this Eufaula deal where it was like,
it might have been, it might not have been.
I fished here on day two. Or, hey, maybe I didn't need this spot and I practiced it. I mean, me and him talked about our practices, about where we got bit, like while we were just messing around. And I was like, oh, it was incredible here in practice. I'm like, I got bit. He's like, yeah. So, I mean, he knows that we both found that stuff, but I don't know about this other deal. There's so much going on. It's hard to realize what's going on. Like who's they were throwing out fake names and people didn't know each other and host sitting. And I'm like, none of that had to even do with the video. It was weird. It was a weird deal.
Yeah. I don't know what, somebody actually commented earlier, asked if Tucker got disqualified. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I heard he did and I've heard he didn't. So I honestly have no idea. You know, literally the only information I have is from both videos.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, and then everybody's spreading rumors and, whatever. But
I guarantee, and see, we're over here in Texas, so like, I don't know Tucker. I don't know the.
I met him. He's a super nice kid.
Is he?
Yeah, he's super nice.
But he wasn't the one in the video.
I think he was in the background, like 50 yards in the background or whatever. So like you see him turn the video, like you see the guy and he's like idling back over there by Tucker. I'm pretty sure, like I'm almost positive that's Tucker in the background. But yeah, I mean you can't see. Duncan said he got DQ'd, but he's still
Yeah, but then like what Clay said, which is weird. Well, I will say this. So like,
I don't know.
They might not have updated the Angler of the Year standings.
I bet they haven't. That they'll update it. I mean, if he's truly disqualified, he will be. They'll fix the standings. Like there'll be like 170 people yelling at him to change the standings. I promise you that. Because I mean, you're talking that kid had. I think he caught a big bag that second day, like a real big bag. Like,
oh yeah, this was day 2.
Yeah, this was day 2. Yeah, I want to say he had like 23 something on the second day. So I mean, he caught a bag of them. And so if he lost that, then I mean he'll drop down to like 100 and something.
He won't be able to qualify.
I mean, it'd be real hard. I mean,
it's early, but it'd be very difficult.
Very hard. I mean, that's why I was really happy with my finish. As bad as it was, like, I mean, it could have been a little bit better, but you know, I did the cardinal sin. I got stuck on a few too many bedfish for a little bit too long, and they were just real weird. I mean, it was a really weird deal.
That whole sitting deal has got to be a very hard thing to. I mean, so obviously we could like anyone that's been in a situation, like I said, a lot of that is hard. Not saying to prove. Yeah. See, like. He's about to go there. Like, a coincidence, the fact that you show up on a lake, right, and just happen to be sitting right where someone wants to fish, and you know the guy. I've always said that, like, if one of y'all is ever in a tournament, I've never done it. I've never been on a lake when there's a tournament going on to, like, watch somebody. I've never in my life. I don't want to be. I think it would be cool. If you do, I'm going to be sitting in a pontoon boat, like doing, I don't know what, but like, I don't want to see what's going on. I don't even want to know anything about that. Right. Like I want to be as far away from all that as possible. Cause my deal is I don't know, man, that way, nothing like that is ever in question.
Well, yeah. So like, here's a prime example. And not everybody can say this, but that coaster that we had on Toledo that we caught them all sight fishing, and nobody was sight fishing. It was early. It was like February.
That we did?
We both got top 10s. We both started in the same creek. It was literally the last week of February.
Yeah.
And literally there was only like 10 of us sight fishing, but they were everywhere and they were coming like just in hordes.
That was in March.
It was like literally the first couple of days of March. So I'm telling you, I looked at it the other day. But anyways,
the one Russell won, the one I was leading on day 1.
No, you weren't leading that one on day 1. Not the one I'm talking about, at least. I don't think.
The one where you came when I was sitting on that big one and you came in,
and I caught all of the 4-pounders around you.
Yeah, I was leading that event.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were leading that one. But anyways, yeah, that one. I ran into a creek. And I'd already told my dad where I was going to be. Well, Jacob Wheeler was with my dad, and they were just sitting out in the middle of the creek waiting on me to get there because we were fog delayed till like 10 a.m. And then I went in there and caught 20 pounds in like 2 hours or an hour and a half.
That was the final day.
Yeah, it was the final day. But Wheeler was out there watching. And, I mean, he wasn't sitting on the bank.
I think Watson and Sprague were out there.
Oh, yeah. They were all – I mean, everybody was out there. They were just watching.
And we were all just sitting at Twin or wherever Cypress Bend waiting to be. Yeah, we only had like 3 hours to fish that day or 4.
Like I remember I caught because I was like, man, like I caught 20 pretty quick and I lost like an 8 that day off a bed and they weren't on that bank. Like I had like 2 fish on that bank. I actually I was trying to go catch one like super hard 6-pounder and I rolled up and they were just everywhere. Like the whole bank was just loaded. I wish I'd have had 8 hours on that bank because it would have been really special. But
yeah,
I mean that was a fun tournament.
Yeah, I was leading day 1. I was in second. Russell, my fishing partner, was in leading at day 2, and I was in second.
I think I got fourth in that tournament, third or fourth. I think I got fourth.
I came in third.
Yeah, so I finished one place behind you, and Russell won, and because he and
Me
I
and
stopped
Russell
on the
did.
same.
Me and Russell did horrible because we were so worried about each other that like, and y'all were just out there freaking lollygo. Like I can't go anywhere but up, and so me and Russell were trying to catch like giant bags.
Yeah,
and I think I don't even know what I weighed in, but I don't think I needed much.
Mm-mm.
But yeah.
So Russell and I tried to start on the same fish on day 1. We actually talked about it the other day. We were in the same creek when we ran into each other, where we both found this one real giant one.
Oh yeah.
And God, that was a big
day 2.
Was it day 2?
Well, yeah, because you ran in on me on day 1.
Oh yeah. It was day 2. It was day 2. We
I had like that 13. I had like a 13.
Yeah.
No one was even gonna find that stupid fish, and I passed up all them 3 and 4 pounders to get back there. They're all one flippers, and I just look back there, and you're just
flipping it.
Yeah. And I'm just watching all this, and I can't see; it's too dark, and I'm just watching this go down, and then my fish was gone. She said it like it was. She said underneath the hyacinth mat. Like I can't believe I saw her. Anyway, she was like that much of her nose was sticking out underneath the hyacinth mat. And she was a monster. And Russell was in that creek in practice, the final day. I didn't even go check on her on the final day, or not. And he said I was in that creek, and I said, "Well, can you do me a favor and go look at this fish?" And he's like, he went over there to it. He said he couldn't see it forever, and he's like looking around. He's like, "Oh, I see her underneath that mat. Like she just poked her nose out." And he was like, "Oh my gosh, she's a giant." And he said, I don't know, man. It looks like she's trying to get on that bed. I'm like, oh no. I guess she got on that bed that night and spawned and got out of there.
Yeah, that was fun because I saw you. I thought you were going to start on. There was 2 easy, super easy.
I know.
One flippers, and I was like, oh, he's going to start on it. And then you went past it, and I'm like, oh, it's over. Like
I was idling through those stumps so fast and hitting them and rolling off of them.
I know. When I saw, I mean, like. This is a tiny creek, guys, like a very tiny creek. And
it's
the only boat in there. Yeah.
But it's not a skinny creek. It's a bowl.
Yeah, it's a wide. Yeah. But like the only other boat, it was just me and him. Like he goes this way and I stop on the very first one I can get on and I catch her in 2 flips. I go the next one, I catch it in 1 flip, go the next one, catch it in 1 flip. And I mean, like at one point, I almost just idled up to one and just flipped it with the trolling motor up. I mean, it was that easy of a.
No, they were easy.
They were so easy,
and it was dark. You couldn't see any of them.
You just kind of had to remember where they were.
And I bypassed every one of them.
And every one of them, yeah, he could have caught every one of them 1 flip. And
what was funny was I left out of there, checked some other ones, and I sight fished that year in a creek that I'd never been to, I went and looked in a place I'd never looked. Yeah. And I went there at like 10 o'clock with 0. I didn't have none. Mm-hmm. And almost all those fish were gone. And I remember the last day of practice, I got to this last creek. And all I had to do was go around this one little point. And there was a bay. And it was like we're talking about a giant creek on Toledo. And then there was like all this other water. And I hadn't gone down any of it. And that was a weird deal because we were all talking about how the fish were kind of they weren't like staying on beds very long.
No, they weren't. It was really weird.
Like you would see a 5-pounder on a bed, turn around and come back to it, and she wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So, anyways, as we were doing this, one of my 5-pounders was still there, and I caught it, and I was like, and I told myself in practice, this is like 3 days of sight fishing. I'm like, if I'm doing so horrible tomorrow, I'm just going to start right where I left off in practice.
Yeah.
And I literally drove to that spot, went around that point, and caught. I had 23 or 4 pounds that day.
24. You had 24.
And all of them except that one came from that point on. Yeah. It was just, and that's what I did. And I just ended up looking for new fish every day.
Yeah, that was a fun one, man. Golly, they were just pulling up like crazy, literally everywhere. Like but it's so funny though, because like you talk about that and the only two people I ran into basically the entire tournament looking was Russell and Todd the whole time. We didn't have any plan. Like I didn't know where he was going to look. He didn't know where I was going to look. We just kept running into each other. I never found the creek that he was referring to where he just kept going.
No one did. I was the only one in there. And I don't think I've ever seen him in there. It was really clear that year.
Oh, and it's not right now, but it's
What?
the opposite of clear right now.
Is it?
What? The lake?
No,
Not that creek. Not that creek. I'm not talking about that creek. Just the lake in general. Like
yeah,
right
in
now,
places.
Yeah, I mean, certain places are really clear, and then certain places are the opposite.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
It's just really not as good as years past. And, and part of that is they've killed off so much vegetation in this lake, and it's just not where it used to be.
It's coming back though.
It is coming back. I get it.
Dude, it's coming back in some places. Like,
yeah.
And at least they got gator. At least they have stuff growing off the bank now. Luckily, they haven't gone and sprayed all that and killed that.
Well, and that's the big worry right now is they're going to go out there and spray all that.
Dude, there's no Sylvania anywhere.
I know, but it's just how it is. I mean, they wiped out all vegetation on this lake. They did
all vegetation, bushes.
For years.
They killed all them bushes and like in Lowe's and like all these places where we used to smoke them, flipping bushes.
But
that's the tournament director. I got to answer that eventually.
Well, I've got to roll anyway. I've got to pick up Payne from school. So
I appreciate everyone sticking around. This was kind of last minute. We'll get Holman just to let everyone know. Holman's on spring break with the kids, and he was out of pocket. He's like, "Hey, I don't have time to talk right now. I'm gonna go throw a blade in this muddy water." And I was like, "All right."
All those fun things to do.
Hey, you got some stuff popping up on YouTube, right?
Yeah, here pretty quick. Yeah, okay. I'm actually going to release a video. I shot 5 shows in 5 days, and I'm going to release a video on that. So 5 TV shows in 5 days. So that'll be cool. And so, and I'm not going to give it completely away, but I did have to go swimming in Ross Barnett because I dropped my phone in the lake.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Oh, it's
I'm not even gonna ask. I'll watch the video.
It's bad. It's real bad. So, but I'll see you guys. See you, Todd.
All right. See y'all.